All right, let's jump right in. We're going to break down a really influential book on education, Clayton Christensen's Disrupting Class. It's a book that truly shook things up because it looks at a problem that frustrates pretty much all of us, but through a completely different lens.
You know this question, right? It's the one that just seems to hang in the air. We pour so much money, so much debate, and so much energy into our schools, but it feels like we're running in place. Why is real, lasting improvement so incredibly hard to nail down? And of course, we've all heard the usual suspects. I'm sure you recognize these. It's like the greatest hits of every argument about education. Depending on who you're talking to, one of these is always the reason things aren't working. But here's where it gets really interesting. Christensen's whole point is that if you can just step back from all that noise for a second and actually look at the data, well, those common arguments start to look a little shaky. So check this out, because this is the real head scratcher. Over 30 years, real spending per student has doubled. The number of computers in schools has gone through the roof. And yet, what happened with student achievement? Nothing. It stayed flat. Annoyingly, stubbornly flat. The big takeaway here is that if just throwing more money and more tech at the problem were the magic bullet, we would have seen the results a long time ago. So if it's not the money or the tech, then what in the world is it? Well, this gets us to the absolute core argument of the book. We've been so busy trying to fix the individual parts, the curriculum, the teachers, the funding, when the real problem is the blueprint of the entire system. It's the architecture itself. Christensen has a great name for it, the monolithic classroom. Think about it like an old factory from the industrial age. It was designed for one thing: efficiency through standardization, to process kids in batches, all learning the same thing at the same pace. But kids aren't widgets, right? We know for a fact that every single student learns in a different way. So how do you break out of a system like that? This is where the book brings in a really powerful idea from a totally different world, from business, actually. It's a theory that explains how huge, game-changing shifts happen in entire industries. It's called disruptive innovation. Now, this isn't about making a slightly better version of what you already have. No, this is about creating something new that's way simpler, way more affordable, and way more accessible. And the key is, it almost always starts by serving people who had no option before, giving them something where they used to have nothing. Let me break it down. You've got two basic flavors. Sustaining innovation is what most big companies do. They just make their existing products better and better for their most demanding customers. But disruptive innovation, that's a whole different animal. It creates a brand new market with something that's just good enough for people who were totally left out before. And this is the perfect example. Back in the day, RCA was the king. They made these gorgeous, massive, high-fidelity radios for the family living room. That's sustaining innovation. Then Sony comes along with this cheap little transistor radio. The sound quality was terrible compared to an RCA, but it was portable. And for a teenager, the choice wasn't Sony versus RCA. It was Sony versus no radio at all. And that changed everything. Okay, so let's bring this all back to schools. This theory of disruption perfectly explains why all those computers we bought didn't magically fix education. We took a technology with the power to be truly disruptive, and we tried to cram it into the old monolithic system. And the reason why is so important. It's this powerful idea from the book. Existing systems are designed to protect themselves. They're built to keep doing what they've always done, so when something truly different comes along, their natural instinct is to reject it. What we did was the educational equivalent of RCA using tiny new transistors to power their same old giant living room radios. It completely misses the point. The whole disruptive power of the transistor was portability and personal use, and we missed that same potential with computers in the classroom. So if cramming tech into the existing classroom was a bust, where is technology actually making a difference? Well, the answer is anywhere it competes against what the book calls non-consumption. In other words, it succeeds wherever the alternative for the student is literally nothing. And the proof is in the pudding. Look at these numbers. The growth has been absolutely explosive. We went from just 45,000 K-12 students taking an online course in 2000 to about 1 million by the time the book was written. That's a huge leap. And this is where it's all happening. Think about it. A tiny rural high school can't afford to hire an AP physics teacher for just 3 kids, but it can offer an online course. A student who needs to make up a credit can do it online. Homeschooled kids, niche subjects, tutoring. In all of these cases, the tech isn't replacing a teacher, it's filling a void. It's competing against nothing. So what happens next? What happens when this disruptive technology that starts on the fringes just keeps getting better and better? Well, that's when you start to see a vision for a radically different and frankly much more exciting future for how we learn. We start by moving away from this, away from the factory model, where every kid is stuck on the same assembly line, moving at the same speed. And we move towards something that is truly student-centric, a system where technology makes it possible for every single student to have a customized learning path, one that fits their style and their speed perfectly. And what about the teachers? This is so important. Their role doesn't get smaller. It gets bigger and even more critical. They get to stop being the sage on the stage who just lectures, and they become the guide on the side. They're a mentor, a learning coach, using all of their skill to help each kid find their own path. Ultimately, everything we've talked about boils down to this one final provocative thought. This change is happening. The disruption is already here. So the question isn't if things will change. The question is, will our current schools be the ones to lead the way and design this new student-centric future? Or will innovators and parents and students just end up building it around them?